Hello, my students. This is another lesson for today, and it is about a response letter that should be written to clarify inquiry letters. And at the end of this lesson, we are going to know what is a response letter, the objective of writing response letters, and showing you an example of a written response letter. Letter to respond to an inquiries about products or services. So response letters are written about an inquiry to products and services. We have to keep these guidelines in mind. You should quickly respond to customers' requests or queries because it shows that you value them. Why we write query or response letters? Okay, so we write it to quickly respond to customers' requests because it shows that you value them. If you write a heartfelt letter, the customers will not only remember your product or service, they will also like your attitude. So it's nice to respond to inquiry letters because the customers here will feel more relaxed and comfortable that you valued that you valued their inquiry letters. Your positive attitude boosts or enhances the client's confidence in your abilities to meet their needs. So, in response letters, you meet the needs of the inquiry letters to customers. Um, you also in inquiry, also in response letters, you have to mention the client's request. Okay, you have to answer his request. Tell the reader how you handled his or her request. Give some information about a particular product or service and promote it. بتعززها يعني. As I told you before, inquiry or response letters could be about a product or a service, asking more information about a product or a service. Explain also one of the objectives to response letters. Explain the procedure of ordering. Invite the reader to ask any questions he/she has in mind, and end in a positive note. Let's see how we write response letters that are written to answer inquiry letters, and showing you an example of a written response letter. Okay, we have here also your own address written to the top of the right page you have. Okay, sender's name, address line, state, zip code, letter date. Some mention the name here, others only write it at or sign it at the end. Depends. Also, to the left, you have the recipient's name to the company you are sending or to the person, the receiver who is receiving your letter, his address, line, also the state, the zip code, etc. In a response letter, you can also start with a subject, a line that clearly summarizes and sums up the intention of the letter. Clearly, you can mention a line what's the intention of the letter, summarizes briefly the objective of writing this letter. You start with dear and you mention you write the recipient's name. Okay, what is his or her name? Okay, with a comma. Then you start with writing your letter. Now, in this letter, okay, you have to answer the questions of the inquiry letter. Um, let's see how. Okay, we have received your inquiry about the online tutorial services we offer. Here the response is about tutorial services, الدورات التعليمية. Thank you very much for your interest. Okay, they do thank the writers who wrote the inquiry letter. We have attached a description of the various plans and services we provide for your perusal. The writer who read about the tutorial services, and uh, he had a specific reading about their services. However, since these things are best explained in person, we would like to send one of our representatives over to answer all of your questions and explain explain why our strategies work best for teenagers and adults. Okay, so here they are making the writer very comfortable, okay, in giving him all the details through a representative they will send to answer all the questions of the writer. We will be giving you a call within the next 2 days so that we can set an appointment. Okay, they will find an appointment with the writer. Okay, we look forward to doing business with you. Okay, so this is an answer or response to an inquiry letter that a person wrote before. You end the response letter with sincerely yours, okay, and you write your name, the sender's name, okay, or the sender's title, and this is optional, and you can send the title or not. But more important is to end with to sign your name. Um, so keep in mind, please, that response letters are a kind of answering the inquiry letters about products or services. Now, my students, I'm going to end with more details about what are response letters. I'm going to summarize briefly what are response letters and why they should be written. So please keep this in mind. Response letters are letters written to provide answers or information requested in letters of inquiry. The main purpose of such letters is to satisfy the recipient with an action that fulfills his or her request. A response letter can be used to respond to a query about company's products and services, or just to respond to a complaint. Okay, so in response letter, they must make everything clear in answering the queries. It makes the recipient feel valued. You are valuing this recipient. You are giving him more value when you answer his inquiry letters, in response letters, and helps maintain strong relationships between the parties involved. And this is very important to build a strong relationship between the recipient and the company you are writing to. Response. So the two parties here are the recipients and the company. A response letter also gives you an opportunity to clear up any misunderstandings with the recipient or ask questions. It could also clarify if something misunderstanding, again, if something wrong would happen or misunderstood in letters, they can clarify it with the recipient. Response letters should be sent promptly, and all issues must be addressed courteously, even those that seem irrelevant. When writing response letters, it is advisable to keep the message short and to the point. As I told you, as I usually told you, my students, uh, uh, formal letters are all the time short and direct to the point. Okay, we shouldn't have long letters that express everything in life. It must be direct to the point. Our objectives only discussed with our uh, objectives, taking into account that the recipient may lack your expertise. Make sure to address the letter to the person who made the inquiry and mention that this is a response to that inquiry. Maintain a positive tone even if the letter contains negative information. يعني the response is very important to inquiry letters, uh, and you couldn't done without response letters because it gives the recipients value, more value to them. It clarifies any misunderstanding they might have and or negative information. Make your response as clear as possible. If you are responding to multiple questions, for instance, consider putting your answers in bullet form, close by offering to give further assistance. Okay, so this briefly discusses what's the objective behind writing response letters and tell us that response letters are extremely important to be written after inquiry letters to clarify all the questions we had in inquiry letters. So as we have inquiry letters, we should have response letters to it. I hope my students you do benefit from our lesson of response letters that are written to inquiry letters that should be written about products or services. And I hope you can benefit from any expressions or sentences the sample include in order to write your own response letters when you need it. And I wish you all the